Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Dattitude. This is episode number 177. It is Friday. It is October 13th. And if it's Friday, it means my pal Larry Holder is with me as we talk about the Saints, previewing Saints-Texans this weekend, and a little look in a little bit at the NFL Week 6. Larry, I'm so sorry we didn't have the new jive music that I know you like and got used to, but we'll have it back next week.
Don't make any promises that you might not be able to keep, Jim Derry. I mean, come on.
It's like, a little rave dance. It got ended before it even started, but it is what it is. So we're here.
I know. Now I'm just listening to fake crowd noise that are fake cheering.
No, that was real. That was real. That was our crowd. That
not for us. Like, it's fake crowd noise cheering us on. Like, no one's cheering us on.
Oh man, come on! You don't know what they're doing behind closed computers. You never know what they're doing back there. All right, let's go. You don't want to know. You're right. We none of us want to know. Saints and Texans on Sunday, a noon game, another noon game before things change. They play next Thursday, so it's gonna be a short turnaround. Saints are a 1.5-point favorite going into this week. Larry, playing on a short week before a short week, does that have any effect on anything?
No, I don't think so. If the Saints had any kind of major injuries, it might, but it's the Saints don't really have that. So I feel like that. It also helps that it's not like the Saints are playing super far away on the road, so they can get home in like 30 seconds from Houston, and it will. I think it'll be fine. So I think it'll certainly affect Jacksonville a little bit more. But look, the Saints. It's funny. In previous years, we'd probably look at this game and be like, oh my gosh, this is like a potential trap game, this, that, and the other. The Saints aren't good enough to have a trap game right now because they can't afford to ever let off the pedal because they have too much and they're not seemingly good enough to do that. And then the Texans are actually kind of along the same lines as the Saints, kind of a middle-of-the-pack team, better than what people anticipated, really on both sides of the football. So I think that's something that the Saints, they're fully aware that they're going to have to grind this thing out. And this is not going to be any kind of pushover by any means.
Yeah, you kind of said it there. The Texans are a middle of the road team, but that's way better than I think most people expected. Certainly I did not expect them to be a middle of the road team, but I think that's where you put them. I talked about in Derry's Dime earlier in this week. I said, there are 3 tiers in the NFL. The Patriots were in that bottom tier. The Saints showed that. The Saints are firmly right in the middle of that middle tier, in my opinion, and I think the Texans are right with them. And hence you see, I think, a line that's actually kind of skewed towards the Saints only because the Saints are more established. They're normally in that middle of the tier, and the Texans, as of late, have not been. Larry and I are going to be on here for about another half an hour. If you want to get your comments / questions in, you're more than free to do so. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, just type them in the comment stream. They'll show up here and we'll show them on the show. And we'll ask Larry what he thinks of those comments or questions right here, again, over about the next half an hour. If you watch on Twitter, you just get to watch and you can wave to us. That's about all you get from Twitter because we cannot see those comments. All right, Larry, but, one of the things I find interesting as we preview this game, if you'd have told me going into week 6 that the best quarterback that the Saints are going to face through 6 weeks is the rookie C.J. Stroud, I would have told you were crazy. But I don't think there's any doubt right now that C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback this team has faced so far.
Man, you're already just discarding Baker Mayfield. Man, gone and forgotten.
Yeah, I'm not forgotten. He's a bum.
But actually, Stroud and Mayfield are kind of neck and neck in some of the
similar.
Some of the advanced metrics that I use every week in quarterback rankings on The Athletic. And I think the biggest surprise with Stroud is that he has not made many mistakes, even though his completion percentage isn't high, but he's not throwing interceptions. And I think that is kudos to him. I mean, just being as a rookie, we've seen so many rookies come in, and even the ones who are now some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Just think of that rookie class going back to the Joe Burrow, the Tua Tagovailoa, the Justin Herbert, those players who are now top quarterbacks you would consider in the NFL. They all had their growing pains as rookies, and it doesn't seem like that C.J. Stroud is having that. And that's a kudos to what they're doing there. And even without a lack of weapons and a lack of running game, you can look at the graphic on here, 27th running the football in the NFL, the Texans. So it's not like Stroud's getting a lot of help deflecting that. So they're having to throw the football a ton, and Stroud's not making a ton of mistakes. So that's something that I'm sure the Saints defense is looking at, and also the Texans in game planning are figuring, all right, the Saints defense has been opportunistic. This is going to be a tougher task. So they're going to want to try to run the football as much as they can against the Saints. And sometimes they're susceptible, but not a ton this year. So I think that this is something that Saints have 7 interceptions this year. It matches how many they've had all of last year. So I think that the Saints are far more opportunistic, but they're going against someone who's been pretty shrewd in protecting the football.
And you see that the rankings there that Larry was talking about, these are rankings, yards per game rankings. So you can see that the Texans are 3rd in passing offense. CJ Stroud is actually 9th in the NFL if you go by passer rating. I'm not sure what he is in the ESPN metric. I think he's 7th or somewhere along those lines, a little bit higher, I believe. But Larry, that being said, the Saints in rankings, they took a giant step up from last week. They were 11th in total defense when we talked the same time last week. They're now 4th, and they're 4th against the pass. When you play Mac Jones, those kind of things can happen. Saints were very opportunistic last week. They'll have to do so again this week. Is this the week that C.J. Stroud's no interception streak ends?
Odds would say yes. Since this is your specialty, I would say that the Saints are probably going to be able to pressure him, and the Saints secondary is pretty much full strength. I mean, Marcus May's back, and so you like where you are at corner. So yeah, I think that streak can end. It's not like what is it, NRG Stadium they call it
NRG,
now?
Yeah.
I mean, back when I lived there a zillion years ago, it was Reliant, and David Carr was the biggest story.
Right.
Was him getting a haircut. Like, that's how bad the team was. That him getting a haircut was a thing, which is
really,
yeah.
They would talk about him getting a haircut.
Yeah, that's how bad the team was. I mean, that's.
And in case if you don't know out there, David Carr, the former Texans starting quarterback, is the older brother of Derek Carr, the now Saints quarterback. If you didn't know that, so there's your tidbit of trivia for the day. But we will not talk about Derek Carr getting a haircut. We will talk about Derek Carr and his performance and that shoulder injury. And obviously, he took a step forward last week, Larry. But I don't think anyone would deny that he clearly wasn't full go last week. We'll see if that changes this week.
Well, he didn't have to be, given how much field position the defense played a part in. I mean, so that was a big plus. And the fact that they ran the football. I mean, that's something that can cover up any kind of shoulder issue that he has. I mean, and so look, his numbers were fine. I mean, passer rating was 100 plus. And I'll just since I do quarterback rankings every week on The Athletic, I'll just kind of point out to where we have, like, the metrics I use, where I have Stroud at number 8 right now in the NFL, 9th in passer rating, 8th in what we call EPA, expected points added per drop back. So I have him. I don't have him. The system has him as 8th. So that's pretty hand in hand, because a lot of times you could see EPA and passer rating be skewed, a la someone like Russell Wilson, who has like the king of just like empty stats. And then he had literally his worst EPA per drop back game of his career last night. So I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but right now we have Derek Carr at number 24. So, and he had a solid week last week, but passer rating was high. So those numbers were kind of inflated.
Well, it's interesting you say that, and you see that the Saints ranking is 24 and passing offense. So they kind of match up. The Texans offensive, the passer rating it's a little bit maybe skewed, or they're off. They're not exactly together.
Right. And so, it's a lot of yards for the Texans, not a ton of points for the Texans. So, it's definitely an eye of the beholder when you come through the stat lines. But I do think, though, that the Texans defense, I think, is a solid bunch. I think that's something that people aren't really talking about the Texans in general. So I'm sure they're not talking a ton about the Texans defense, but D'Amico Ryans is a defensive guy. So you expected them to come in and probably play good defense. And the fact that the offense is getting going a little bit better than maybe we thought, I think that's what has capped the Texans kind of middle of the pack. And I think that's a good start for them. But, when it comes to defense versus offense, I feel like the Texans are going to give the Saints a good test, and the Saints are going to give the Texans a good test. Both stronger defensively. So, I'm looking at the over-under 42.5 right now.
That's the highest that the Saints have had this year, by the way.
That might be high. Like I think
it might be a little high as well.
Yeah, that might be a little high for both teams, just given the way that the offenses aren't putting up a ton of points and the way that each defenses are kind of keeping other teams down so far this year.
You got to remember that before last week, the Saints had not scored more than 20 points. I believe it was 7 straight games, which is the longest streak in the NFL. So they got that streak off their backs, but they needed a lot of help from their defense. The pick 6 by Tyrann Mathieu certainly helped. Other turnovers by Mac Jones and the Patriots obviously helped. So I think that 34 is a little bit skewed if you're just looking at expected points. I know a lot of people are using those sorts of metrics now, Larry, when you're talking about like realistic scores. I think The Athletic does this as well. What the score should have been. I'm not a huge fan as a bettor. I know there are a lot of bettors, people who make a lot of money doing this, who use these numbers. I personally don't all that much, but it does tell you, at least give you a realistic expectation of what the score should have been. Doing that, do you know what the score? And I'm putting you on the spot because we never talked about this. Do you know what the score should have been last week?
Oh no, I don't. That's something I don't like. We have other guys who do that. I don't dive into that. Like but
I know that The Athletic does that.
Right. We lean. Some of us lean on that stuff, and I use this stuff because I think it's, a lot of people look at, and for example, I do quarterbacks every week.
Yeah,
and
I think your stat of EPA per dropback, I do like that one, because that gives you a real glimpse into the quarterback that you're going up against. And I think those rankings are that metric is probably a little bit more true than just saying yards per game, because like you talk about with Russell Wilson, that could be he had, just using last night, I mean, Cortland Sutton makes this incredible, crazy long catch that. Are you really giving that stat to Russell Wilson right there? So, I'm just saying those are the sorts of things that you can kind of get skewed a little bit. I think this is more of a true rating on a quarterback.
Right. And I'm not, we're getting kind of nerdy here, but it also goes into, playing well in the fourth quarter. It's putting points on the board. You could all of a sudden have a high passer rating, but you only throw it like, 20 times, and you can get 2 touchdowns, and it's, or you could inflate it in garbage time. Like I feel like Russell Wilson has done a ton. So like, I feel like he's like the king. Him and Kirk Cousins are kind of like the kings of the empty stats. Their passer ratings could look great, but then when it comes down to the nitty gritty, they're not. And so I feel like that's why I kind of mix and match both of those in my weekly column to show, all right, it could look like this, but on you look a little deeper, and it's not as good as maybe it seems, or it's a little better than maybe it seems. But so yeah, and I think that's one thing to where you look at, just for example, last week, like Derek Carr's passer rating was 114.7. That was fourth best.
Very good.
That was fourth best in the league last week, but his EPA per dropback was only ranked 15th, which they only had 28 starting quarterbacks. So it was actually middle of the road, because a lot of that, it was not on his shoulders to get it done, but he threw 2 touchdowns, so that's part of the difference there. Running game helped. Obviously, the defense put them in really good positions to where he didn't have to put it on his shoulder. And so that's something that, as he heals, I think that's a good thing, that the Saints don't have to do that. But in the long run, you probably don't want to put it all on his shoulders.
Right.
You want them to run the football well. You want the defense to be opportunistic, and you want to give the Saints short field to where you can, Derek Carr doesn't have to make and win every game, a la like Drew Brees way back when the defense didn't play well. And it was all on him. If you're not scoring 40, you're going to lose. If the Saints could score 20, the Saints could score 24 points, 20 plus points a game. They should be in good position to win a lot of games.
No, there's no question. I think if the Saints could get their points per game average up to 23 or 24, I think they'd be in excellent shape. The question is, can they do that? And it's all going to be a lot on Derek Carr, because I think now what you see is what you get. They will improve. They will get a little help when Jamal Williams can return, which is Thursday, by the way. So the Saints will have their full, assuming there are no injuries this week, the Saints will have their full complement of running backs on Thursday against Jacksonville, and they'll need that on a short week. Speaking of that, I thought Kendra Miller was a nice compliment to Alvin Kamara last week. It's going to be interesting to see if they can do that going forward. I also, I don't want to poo-poo on what the Saints did, but a lot of times when you get a team that gets up like the Saints did and led 21-0 at the half, sometimes stats can be skewed a little bit because you got a defense that's probably saying, all right, we're not going to win this game. I mean, I'm not saying they laid down, but they certainly probably weren't given max effort either.
Well, I'll combat it back to where, look, the Saints defense could have let up and gave some points.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true.
They were hell bent to be like, we're gonna knock the snot out of it.
They wanted that shutout though. When that goose egg is still on the board, there's a lot of impetus. You don't get a lot of chances in the NFL to get a shutout, and the Saints definitely were licking their chops. They were very interested in that shutout. Let's put it that way.
Oh, no doubt. On the road against Bill Belichick and Patriots and all of that, and just like that's certainly a big pride thing. Also, it goes 100%. to show other teams we're going to help you play bad. Like if you're not on, we can make you not be on, and B, if you're off and making mistakes on your own, we're going to make you pay. Yeah. So I think that's something. And look, I think opponents, when they're going up and down the schedule looking, say someone like Detroit in a few weeks, Detroit knows that the Saints defense is going to be one that they're going to be big time need to be prepared for. They already know it with Dan Campbell as head coach, and Aaron Glenn knows how good the Saints defense and the pieces of the puzzle are. But like someone that's has been having a good offensive performances throughout the season, I think that's something that they're going to circle and say, look, the Saints could slow us down in some of these aspects and take some weapons away. And not a ton of teams can do that in the NFL. So as the offense is getting its mojo, the fact that the Saints defense kind of just had a blip and came back and said, look, we're going to wipe out an inferior opponent and be the strength. I think the Saints, it's not like they're facing too many offensive juggernauts this year. So
hardly.
But they could also take a juggernaut and slow them down. Like I think that's a fair point that I think that people need to understand.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit. We're gonna give you our predictions in a little bit. Larry we need to make sure we're off the air within the next 13, 14 minutes here. So we're gonna come back to the Saints. We're gonna give you our prediction a little bit. We'll give you a 4 or 5 minute total prediction on the Saints. So. But Larry, I do want to spend 9 or 10 minutes here on the NFL, and because I do think there are some interesting matchups. So again, if you're watching, we are going to come back to the Saints. We'll give you our final predictions in about 9 minutes or so. But there are some very interesting matchups this week. And the one that I look at, and this line keeps changing and changing and changing. It started out this week. San Francisco was a 4-point favorite on the road at Cleveland on Monday morning. It is now 10. Look. The reason why it's moved so much is the word is that Deshaun Watson isn't going to play this week because his shoulder still hurts. I think there are other issues in Cleveland beyond Deshaun Watson's shoulder. But if you're telling me the move from Deshaun Watson to PJ Walker is 6 points, I'm going to tell you you're out of your box. No player in the NFL, except maybe Patrick Mahomes, to me, moves a needle 6 points.
Maybe
in the betting world, anyway.
I don't know. Maybe there's maybe a couple, but it's all quarterback related. But I'm with you that Deshaun Watson doesn't do that much for you. Here's the thing, and I'm just going to go back to last year's Browns team. It's not the same, but Like the Browns were better off with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback last year.
There's no question about that.
And so much so where I thought
and still would be
that Washington might be more consistent with him at quarterback rather than Sam Howell. But I get they're going with Sam Howell. They want to see if he's the future. But like PJ Walker, like they moved him up above the rookie because the rookie that they played out of UCLA was awful when he filled in. And so I think the fact that the 49ers, what did you say? They were only a 4-point favorite?
The 4-point favorite on Monday morning. It has moved, and it was 5 on Tuesday. So Here we are on Friday. It's going from 5 to 10. And just yesterday, it was at 8. So it went from 7 on Wednesday to 8 on Thursday. And now every Aunt Mabel on the planet who's got her Social Security check, who thinks she's going to make some easy money betting on San Francisco, you got another thing coming because Cleveland has the best defense in the NFL. They've only allowed 125 yards per pass. Now, granted, they haven't played any great passing teams, but still, Larry, if you're in the NFL and you're in the week 6 and you've only allowed 125 yards per game passing, I don't care who you're playing. That's incredible.
Good segue that you had no clue that I could bring up. But in my going back to my column, I do each and every week the defensive EPA per drop back, a big chart of every team in the league and the opposing quarterbacks that they're going against. Brock Purdy's number 1 in EPA per drop back for quarterbacks. The Browns are number 1 in EPA, defensive EPA per drop back. So this is 1 versus 1. So this is a big matchup. The equalizer could be Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I think
there's no question. Yeah,
he's the equalizer. Also, you could throw in Deebo Samuel. He could do things like they can mix and match some of these things. But yeah, look, the Browns pass rush. I mean, Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett. He's one of the best in the league. Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year, rightfully so. And so yeah, like I'm not saying that. You're talking spread. I mean, so yeah, like I think that the game could be closer possibly than the 10. Like
I think that's the bet of the week. It's now the bet of the week to me. I mean, you're talking about an over under, which is, if you're not in the betting world, the jargon, the over under means that this is what the point total is combined, what Vegas is set a number at, and it's at 37, which is super low, by the way. They put the over under. You can bet that either the total points scored between the two teams will be over 37 or under 37. And the averages in the NFL is probably around 43, 44. It's probably the average these days. Maybe 45 even is an average number. So to have 30, any number in the 30s is super low. Now, that being said, there's expected weather in Cleveland on Sunday. It's supposed to be rainy throughout the entire game. Temps in the low 50s and winds around 20 miles an hour. So even that, I mean, this is not something Brock Purdy's used to. That definitely favors the defense. So if you're talking about an over-under where there are 37 expected points being scored and you're going to give one team 10, to me, that is a gift.
Yeah, I think that's in that world, I think you're totally right. Conditions, the way that Cleveland – and look – hobbled or not, I mean, I know Joe Burrow probably wasn't at his best when they played Cleveland, but they just wiped him out.
Yep.
Like they wiped that off the board. And obviously Joe Burrow's getting right now.
Yep.
I think you could see if you watched last week, he doesn't seem as hampered. And so I think they're gonna get their head of steam going. So I mean, but still, you did that against them, you did it. So but still, I agree. Conditions and all that, it could be. Now, here's the thing. Say, I don't know if the Browns are putting up hardly any points on the board. So that's one factor. So
PJ Walker played okay for the Panthers last year. He wasn't great. And I know that the 49ers defense is stout. But, I mean, still, I think Jerome Ford has done a decent job filling in for Nick Chubb. You still have Amari Cooper. You still have a decent offense. I'm not saying it's a top 15 kind of offense, but look, I think the Browns can put up 10 or 13 points. And to be honest, that might be all they need.
Yeah, but PJ Walker's been there for like 20 minutes. Like he wasn't the number 2 quarterback going into the year. Like that's
right.
So I think that's part of it there. But San Francisco, they put the kibosh on the Cowboys offense. Like, I think they could certainly do that to the Browns, even if Deshaun Watson was there. I mean, I think they could certainly just here's the thing. All right. So what's the over under right now? Like San Francisco could win 27-0 and blow them out.
But see, Larry, what you're also another thing. And in the betting world, this is what, if you were a 49ers fan, you could look and say, or if you were just, we use the term trap game and people say there's no such thing as a trap game. BS. There's 100% the trap game thing is real.
Oh, that's real.
This is a perfect flat spot for the Niners going across the country the week after you played the most prime time, the most national game of the year. You kick the Cowboys' butts. Everybody thinks you're the best team on the planet by far. And I'm not saying the Niners are going to lose, but I'm telling you this. I would not use the Niners in my survival pool this week. I'm telling you, it could happen. An upset absolutely could happen. I think the Niners will win, but I definitely don't think they'll win by 10. I think it's going to be an ugly, nasty slap fest where it's like a 13-10 kind of game.
Yeah, the Browns defense gives them a chance. That's the big thing. And if they can run, they love to run the football. Obviously, they don't have Nick Chubb, but they love to run the football. And Jerome Ford, I haven't really paid super much attention to him.
Kareem Hunt is back in the fold and has now been able to practice for 3 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I think that is a trickier game than what it appears. So I would agree with you that is something that it might not be this big giant blowout and high score. The 49ers offense could come back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah.
But still, it's and the conditions and
interesting
there's no doubt that this is a game where people might be sleeping on Cleveland, but they're still not a bad team. So I think I think everything you're saying is spot on.
All right, we got about another minute or two. I'm going to pick one other. I'm actually going to pick 2 other games. I'm going to spend 30 seconds on each one. One is the Monday night game. How do you expect the Cowboys to come back after last week? Look, I still think they're a really good football team. They got exposed last week, especially across the middle. The Chargers can do that, but I think the Chargers are really poorly coached. I don't know that they'll be able to expose the things they needed to expose, and the Cowboys are pissed off.
Well, I like the return of Mr. Austin Eckler. So I've picked the Chargers straight up to win this one. I think Dallas is down. And I think there's the injury to Leighton Vander Esch.
Yep.
Could put Micah Parsons back playing more traditional linebacker than you would like.
Yeah.
So now they have viable pass rushers still, and they're going to use him. I mean, he's not going to be playing, 80% of his snaps as the Mike linebacker. But I do think that the Cowboys maybe are a little shell-shocked. And I don't think Khalil Mack's going to go and get 6 sacks, but I mean, maybe he can affect play. But I think Eckler is a big deal. Finally coming back, he's been out for a few weeks and he's ready to roll. So I think that's kind of one of the trickier games of the week if you're picking even heads up. But I'm going with the Chargers in that one.
All right, I got the Cowboys, so we'll see who's right and who's wrong. There's one other one there's a couple other ones that are intriguing. We were running out of time because we got to get back to the Saints before we say goodbye for the day. But what do you think about Patriots-Raiders? I think Patriots bounce back. This is the bounce back Bill Belichick week. I thought the Saints would do well last week. They did. We both did, actually. I think you picked the Saints as well last week, right?
Yes.
We both picked the Saints last week. I think this is a Bill Belichick bounce back week. I don't think the Raiders are very good. Their record is better than what I thought it would be. I didn't think they would win last week. They found a way to get it done, but I think the Patriots win this game.
I'm taking the Raiders.
Okay. Well, there you go. Surprise.
Yeah. I think Mac Jones's mental state is in terms of being the starting quarterback is not where it needs to be. They can't run the football. I mean, I don't think the Raiders are that good either. I'm with you. But look, I think Max Crosby can induce some problems for Mac Jones if he's still in there playing. And I think defensively, the Patriots, they can't really create much of a pass rush anymore. Judon's out. Their secondary is not what it should be. And Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, and Jimmy Garoppolo, look, he didn't look great in the win, but he at least got it done last week. But I think that the Raiders at this point in time, catching them where they are catching them, I feel like that they're just a touch better. So
Bill Belichick against his old assistant coach, his old offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels, and his old quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's going to be an interesting game. If the Patriots can't get up for this one and they stink in this one, and it's going to be Bill Belichick, I think is going to pull a Jim Mora and quit at some point soon. That's what I truly believe. If they can't get up and win this one, or at least play well, I don't think he's going to be around much longer. We'll see. More on that coming up in my full predictions. Uncle Big Nick and I did not have a show yesterday. We will have our predictions on the regular podcast coming up. All right, we got to wrap it up. We're going to do it with Saints-Texans predictions. It's Pixie Dust Friday. And we're not going to have a Pixie Dust Friday next week because the Saints play on Thursday. We'll have to figure out how we do that. If you come on Thursday or we just do it Friday, we'll figure it out later. But that being said, Saints-Texans. Saints are 1.5 point favorite. What you got, Larry Holder?
Look, I think the Saints are going to win this one. I think that they can give Stroud some problems, and I think that that offensively they can. I think they're going to be able to run the football, and I think that's going to be key. And so, I'm going to go Saints. I'll go Saints 24, Texans 17. So where do I have that? Is that under technically?
That would be under.
Yes.
That would be under. And you were
my
talking
Rummel
about
Raider
under earlier.
Skills under.
Oh, them Rummel Raiders. Poor Steve Scalise. Anyway, that's a whole different story.
My fraternity brother as well.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't realize that. Okay. Well,
yep.
There you go. All right. We have been on the same side for 2 weeks in a row. It is not 3. I don't think the Saints win this game. I think this is a bad spot for them. I think that I'm more inclined to take them against a better team next week on a short week. Jacksonville is going to have some issues. We'll talk about that next week. But I just don't like this spot. I don't like the receivers for the Texans against the Saints secondary. I know Lattimore will probably be on Nico Collins. And I understand that Dell is probably not going to play. But I just think as a whole that Houston coming off the loss and not playing very well offensively last week against Atlanta, I think they will play better. I think it's a really tight game. I think it's one of those games where the Saints lose in the final minute and people are back to questioning Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen and all that stuff. I really think that's what's going to happen on Monday. I hope I'm wrong because I really don't want to do that again. I kind of went off last week, and I really don't want to do that again. So I hope Larry's right. I hope I'm wrong. We'll find out. I guess we'll find out in a hurry on Sunday. Larry's got the Texans. I got the Saints. Larry's got the Saints. I have the Texans. I'm going to give you a final score of 23-17. I'm pretty close to Larry, except the other way. So I'm going to take the under as well. I do like the under. I think it's a hard-hitting, slow game to get started, and the Saints find a way to lose. Again, hope I'm wrong.
Man.
I'm just calling it the way I see it. So, all right, speaking of the way I see it, when this is done, I will go add my monologue. Again, Uncle Big Nick and I were not able to do a show. I will give our best bets and our picks of the week, all coming up on the regular podcast. Go and search for Dattitude wherever you get your podcast. Until then, we'll talk to Larry next week. What day? We don't know yet. Derry's Dime coming up on Monday. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the Saints game. We'll talk to you later. Peace and love, my friends.